In the immortal words of the late, great Mills Lane, the fabled boxing referee, let's get it on. That's what we want to do. He always did this thing where he thumbed his nose for some reason. Forefinger to the nose. I'm not sure exactly what that meant. That's some kind of mafia sign. Okay, the guy in the red corner is going to win. Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to be back with you here after what I hope was a very festive holiday season that is ongoing as we spiral right into next week using Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, and all of the others, associated with this holiday season. We roll right into the new year, and it certainly has been a festive occasion. If you happen to be a degenerate, I mean, you couldn't ask for any more action. Your eyes have to be kaleidoscopic, going screen to screen, much like I do at the racetracks. You have had a complete smorgasbord of virtually everything that you could possibly imagine to bet on, including Christmas Day, with the addition of two National Football League games now added to the schedule, broadcast by Netflix. $150 million. Did they hold back? Did they give him the New Orleans Saints and Tennessee Titans? Raul Michaels to sit there. Well, he's on Amazon Prime to grouse about, we got a lousy game tonight. They certainly did last night. What a dud, 6-3. The Seattle Seahawks over the Chicago Bears. But getting 4 points with the Bears, I would have to say, and it's interesting because Caleb Williams was actually brilliant from a degenerate standpoint last night. Now, completely sucked, putting up only 3 points on the board. If you were watching the game from any other angle other than wagering. But he orchestrated that late drive where they evaporated a lot of the clock, couldn't quite get into field goal range, which made it even better. And then your favorite formation when you're getting 4 points and your team is only trailing by 3, the victory formation by the other team. Just go ahead and take a knee and let me cash out of this thing and end up a winner. But anyway, a lot of great action over the weekend. Netflix, nice piece of redemption by their production crew. That was an absolute catastrophe. Not so much even the buffering was one thing where people just kept losing a signal during the Tyson Jake Paul fight, which was a disaster from the start. I mean, if you were buying into that, you were buying into a completely fugazi event. And while there was some entertainment there, the women's fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, certainly entertaining, although I'm not a big fan of women's boxing. I don't need to see two chicks beating the shit out of each other, but if you're going to go ahead and say, okay, well, I'm going to accept that as a viable sport and a venue for people to express themselves, and they're willing to do it, and they happen to be very good at it, well, it provided you the action. Other than that, though, it was a stiff, and then a complete disaster for the Netflix people from a production standpoint. So you're thinking, wow, how are they going to fuck this up if they're doing NFL games? And they came off, acquitted themselves very well. And the games, as I said, marquee kind of stuff, although they turned out to be boring blowouts on Christmas Day, and they were trying to steal a little bit of the spotlight. Even LeBron James mentioned this. They were trying to steal a little bit of the spotlight from the NBA, and I think they succeeded because if you wanted to watch those games, maybe you signed up for Netflix. They managed to, I'm sure, attain a few subscribers by putting up the $150 million. Games were well produced, and yet they offered little in terms of drama, as the Chiefs absolutely shellacked the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Ravens, of course, prevailed very easily over a Houston team that seems to be really coming back to the pack. All right, a lot of stuff to discuss on the program today. If you are betting, and a ton of things, not just today, you have 5 bowl games going and all kinds of other sporting activity. And then tomorrow, a lot of bowl games, including a couple of good ones in terms of the matchups. Pretty difficult to peg, though, as you have to really dig deeply into inside information. And a lot of this isn't even happening and not coming out until within a half hour of game time. It'd be good to talk to a couple of SIDs. If you're friends with an SID at some of these universities that are involved, that has to be an asset. Like the time the professor found out that Marcus Camby was going to be playing against Rutgers, one of the toughest beats of all time. Told the story a few times here on Bury Your Bookie, and the professor not with us today. He's actually subjecting himself to traveling to Cleveland so he can catch the Miami Dolphins play the Cleveland Browns. Got to be a girl involved in that, right? Girl that he happens to be seeing is a big Cleveland Browns fan from Cleveland, schlepping him, making him schlep all the way to Cleveland to see this horror show, which no doubt has to be as close to Rain Out Theater as you can get. Now, if you're betting, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform. Your number one source for online betting. These guys are absolutely great at what they do. They've been doing it for a long time. For the earliest odds, they'll get you right into live betting as the game is taking place. Our man Mike Jones is getting very much addicted to that. Watch out, Mike. That could be costly, but provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the game, bet on the games as they're taking place, the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA, the NFL, college football, the bowl games, basketball, NHL, UFC. Head to Bet Online today. Don't forget to use the promo code now. This gets you extra money. That's BLEAV, believe, BLEAV. It's in all caps, the way I have it here. And so you might be advised, take that into advice to go ahead and use all caps, BLEAV, and that'll get you your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, mentioned a lot of action. I'm not sure which is worse. We'll have to ask this gentleman when he joins us here in just a sec. And I appreciate him getting up real early in the morning, off in the hinterlands of the Pacific Northwest. You're joined here by the devil himself. And man, I'm surprised that he doesn't have a fire hose there to douse the flames, because the man, as they say, as Lee Pete on the Proline show used to turn to some guy that looked like he slept in the trunk of his car, Chip Chirimbus, or one of those guys on the Proline show on USA Network. The man is on fire. We welcome to the show Troy West. Troy, how was your holiday so far? I know I've been tracking you a little bit on social media, and you're winning at an incredible clip, which is really nice to see.
Sometimes lucky, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, Defo. Yesterday was the feather in the cap. We're sitting there and we had Kansas State, but we did have them in a teaser bet, and they're down 17 points to Rutgers, and it
Yeah.
did not look pretty at all. And sure enough, Kansas State wins 44-41, and so that's when you're like, you know what? Let's go play some craps. Let's go try the slot machines. Let's test our luck out because it's sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Keep the ball rolling. Yeah, I would have had no interest in these bowl games yesterday, except I've told you many times and told the people here about my buddy. We just have a head-to-head. He makes the picks, and I book his bets. And we're straight up. If he wins, which is rare, at the end of the season, he is expecting my money to be zelled to him immediately after the last game went official, and vice versa the other way. And I'm collecting every year. So yesterday, and he's having a decent season by his standards. He's hovering around 500. There's maybe no money to be exchanged after all of this. But he hands me Toledo, and I didn't even know they were playing. They're playing Pittsburgh. And this is where it gets into an interesting question. Which can be worse, especially with college football and the way the overtime is situated? The agony of victory or the agony of defeat? Because I was in agony that entire game watching Toledo, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're down 10 points in the fourth quarter. They come all the way back. They send the game into overtime. Now they're down 7 as Pittsburgh gets a touchdown on their first possession in the first overtime. And you're thinking, I'm dead in the water here. They convert a fourth down. Then they go in. I don't know if that was a fourth down play when they went in for the touchdown, but it was getting to be very anxious that they wouldn't tie the game up. Now they tie the game, and of course they get the ball first in the next overtime. And you're thinking, all I need is a fucking field goal with this cockamamie system. Sure enough, they get it. But it was agony all the way. I don't know. I think I would have been better off just throwing the tickets and the flowers in the punch and getting out of that thing, because it can really be rough trying to figure out and doing all the mathematical permutations it takes to figure out if you have a chance to cover a point spread.
No, I agree. It's been some of the, same deal. San Jose State, I bought that thing down to -2.5 the other night, and they go to, I don't know if you saw that, but they had 2nd and 1 to win the game, didn't get the yard. They had 3rd and 1 to win the game, didn't get the yard. They had 4th and 1 to win the game, they punt the ball. USF goes down, sends it to overtime, and then all of a sudden it goes into that 5th overtime. Now they both going for 2, and now you know you're done because you're sitting at 2.5, and you know the
Yeah.
game's going to end at a 2-point score. So it's tough, like you said, it's tough to weigh that into the spread, but man, it can get you. There's no doubt about it.
And if you're an overplayer, well, I guess if you're an underplayer, you're looking for an undertaker. I mean, you're thinking,
Yes.
hey, pass the embalming fluid, please. I'm dead. And these games have been going on into 5 and 6 overtime periods now. As you said, from the third one on, it's only 2-point conversions, but still, it seems to add up. And you're having games that I guess had over/under totals of maybe 60 something, going up to 100 points, which is pretty incredible. It's definitely been wild. Now, how has your information been holding up? Are you getting any insight at last minute? It seems like these updates come down to the last minute. We're seeing wild point spreads swings within the hour before kickoff, because it becomes known who's in and who's out, right? Hey, you see Whitey on the sidelines there? I don't. How is that going for your service there, Troy Russ? That Troy wins. Are you getting any real insight into who's going to be there and who's not?
Oh, absolutely. And one of them, goes tonight. We had this line opened up at 4 points. This thing opened up at 4 points. Syracuse, Washington State. That line is now up to 17 and a half points. I'm not kidding you. Washington State, they've lost their coach. They've lost the athletic trainer. They've lost everybody. They have 25 guys in the transfer portal right now.
Wow.
25. If it weren't for lawsuits and all that other crap, they would have forfeited this game without a doubt. So I'm curious. I was talking to some people about it. How does Vegas adjust that line? I mean, is 13 points really enough points when we're talking about 25 guys, including the starting quarterback, the head coach, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So, yes, we're very much dialed into this transfer portal. We've done a really good job with the bowl season. I'm looking forward to seeing tonight because we've got this line anywhere from 4 to 12, and I still like it at 17. So that's going to be a game on Fox tonight, Syracuse versus Washington State. But I don't know how Vegas how can you adjust the line when you're talking about missing that many starters. We've got a game going this morning, Navy versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma opened up as a 9 point favorite there. That thing's dropped to 2.5. And I'm trying to figure out how is Oklahoma favored in that game. I mean, Navy, obviously, I get it. They're one dimensional. They're not that great a football team. It is the Armed Forces Bowl, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
But that's another one. I'm like, geez, I mean, Oklahoma loses their quarterback. They've got 20 guys in the portal. Are they really going to go in and beat Navy this morning? I guess we'll see, but I don't see it happening.
Mentioned a while back, I had an interview, and you can find it online if you just look up Bleacher Brothers, Google Bleacher Brothers, and the show's called Conversations. And we had Armin Katayan on one of our episodes, and he wrote that book with Billy Walters. And what was fascinating, one of the fascinating things that came out of that interview, was that Walters way ahead of his time. I mean, this is kind of before sabermetrics and all of this analytics really infused its way, oversaturated its way into sports and gambling. But he ascribed a value number to each player, no matter how low the scrub was on the totem pole. And he based a lot of his wagers, no emotion whatsoever, no gut instinct. He was all strictly math, and he used this equation that he developed, I guess, on his own somehow, like he was Bill James or something. And he has assigned a value to every player, and that, I guess, that would be an important thing if you could pull this off. If you had some kind of database like that that could evaluate it, that would be the only way for these line makers to keep up with massive changes like this.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's crazy. I mean, I think in the NFL it's a lot easier for them because they really know the players and they know
Yeah.
the value that the players add to these teams. When you're talking college basketball, college football, I mean, I'll give you the example again tonight. John Mateer. I mean, this guy accounted for 85% of Washington State's offense, and he's not playing. He's on the NIL deal now, headed to Oklahoma. And so when you take a guy like that out of the offense, I mean, how do you adjust the line appropriately? So I think this is a gambler's dream right now. If you really are dialed into these teams, I think Vegas is just kind of throwing numbers against the wall and hoping it hits.
Yeah, well, so are we to a large extent. Well, when it comes to some of these bowl games, although so far, I guess what underdogs have been prevalent. I did want to mention a good friend of ours over the years, where we got very close in terms of his participation on shows and the conversations we had with the now former basketball head coach Jim Larinaga, a great guy with a
Yeah.
tremendous. This guy, Troy, you would love him. He's a basketball treasure chest. I mean, whenever I spoke with him, and I'm a huge basketball fan going way back. And it turned out we had a couple of common threads, although he was a far superior player and certainly a greatly accomplished coach, having taken various programs, including George Mason and an unlikely University of Miami team to Final Four. So a tremendous basketball legacy that he wrote. And we had a conversation with him a few years ago, and he was saying that the transfer portal and the NIL, the changes were going to be so overwhelming that you're not going to recognize the game in a short period of time. And he seemed very. You could hear in his voice the kind of resignation to the idea that maybe this was going to be it for him. And subsequent to that, he did go to the Final Four, but yesterday when he gave his reasons for leaving, he pointed straight at transfer portal and NIL and said it's just not the game that it was when I was coaching it. Got into it 50 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's sad. Obviously, you're seeing this over and over now, and it's a sad deal. I mean, Nick Saban, he quietly left because of how tired of it he was. You'd have to help me with the name. And another coach obviously resigned earlier in the year. Oh, Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett over at the University of Virginia.
Yeah,
And Tony Bennett's a young coach, really young. I mean, I think he's in the late 40s, early 50s, and he's doing it. So it's a disgusting, sad deal. And honestly, Defo, I wonder, in the next 5 to 10 years, are we going to see a salary cap that to kind of level the playing field? Is it just going to be free money from these alumni just recklessly giving out money and
yeah.
ruining the
Who's there to
sport?
regulate it? I guess would be the question, Troy. I mean,
That's going to be the question. That's going to be what
how
needs to
will it be,
happen.
administrated if there is some kind of restriction put on it? Which I mean, unless there's no ceiling on what these guys are able to offer, and you're seeing quarterbacks supposedly, I mean, I don't know if it's average. You don't see them in any commercials for like the local car dealership, but you do see them getting like $4 million from Lou Backroad Chevrolet or something. But which, if there's nobody overseeing this, I mean, even the NFL had to put a system of checks and balances on themselves. Although they certainly have a lot more money to carve up after getting that $150 million from Netflix on Christmas Day, so that they could invade the NBA's territory, which I think they probably did very successfully. All right. Well, all that being said, I mean, we want to make a score, Troy West. We're looking to make some money here over the weekend, and there are 5 bowl games today, and you mentioned a couple of them. You have a couple of interesting matchups tomorrow, in addition to several others that are being contested. We're a couple of days away, or 3 or 4 days away, from getting into the uh, quarterfinal round of the college football playoff, where teams had buys and yet still find themselves as underdogs. Very interesting time all the way around. So, and the NFL has 3 games on Saturday also, and a complimentary, Sunday card as well. So, what are you looking at? I mean, where are we going to make a score, Troy West?
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. If we're going official, I'll give you one in the NFL on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles are at home. They are -7 at home against the Dallas Cowboys. I've had this game circled for quite a while. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play. I assume he's out. Looking at that line sitting at -7. But CeeDee Lamb announced yesterday that he's going to be hanging up his season. And this guy has really been the only key part for that Dallas offense. He's really kept them going. Cooper Rush goes to him 90% of the time when he's in doubt. The Eagles have the heartbreaking loss last week to the Commanders, in which they blew that game. 7 is not enough. Philly went into Dallas earlier this year, beat them 34-6. Their defense is going to be hungry. I absolutely love the Eagles on Sunday. Give me the Eagles -7 on Sunday. This morning, again, I like Navy. I think Navy wins that football game. That's the Armed Forces Bowl. That's a really good Navy team that took care of Army just a couple of weeks ago in fashion. I like Navy quite a bit in that football game. Also today, Georgia Tech -3. Georgia Tech -3 against Vanderbilt. I think that's going to be a fun football game to watch. But Haynes King, that guy can play, man. He has played great football here down the stretch. It's going to be, Pavia, a lot of fun to watch. But this Georgia Tech football team's good. Give me Georgia Tech -3. And then also tonight in the Vegas Bowl, Texas A&M -3.5. They're against USC. This is one of those games again. How many guys are in the portal for both teams? USC's got a handful of guys. I like Texas A&M. They're still well coached. A lot of talent on both sides of the football. Give me A&M -3.5.
All right, Troy West stepping out here, mostly on the college front, but does like the Eagles. If you can decipher, do you try to do this? I mean, this information is out there, and you'll see it on a crawl on like ESPN or ESPN2 or any sports network for that matter. And It's you try to read the tea leaves on the crawl. It seemed to me, I don't know why I got this impression. Maybe I was half asleep at the time, but I'm watching. I got the feeling that Jalen Hurts was going to play in this game. The general consensus from just watching what vague information is out there on the crawl. I don't know. Do you ever try to figure that out? And, yeah, I obviously could be dead wrong, but it sounded like it was like a favorable thing. It was almost like they were telling us that Kamala Harris was going to win the election, and then
The only thing that led me to believe that he wouldn't was the line did go from 9.5 to 7.
okay,
And that's, it's interesting that you say that because I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, it's concussion protocol. These guys are playing in 48 hours on the
yeah,
concussion protocol. The division's on the line. But the line did drop. And, like you said, he hasn't practiced, and there hasn't been a whole lot of information saying, oh, yeah, he should practice on Friday or he's doing much better, whatnot. But I was just going off sheer line movement there, seeing the Eagles go from 9 to 7.
okay. So you're watching the money and where it's coming in. And since his last press conference was in Hebrew, I don't know that he's made any strides towards overcoming the conditions and the unfortunate effects of having a concussion. All right, as I mentioned, a couple of other games on Saturday, and then in the college ranks, I wanted to get your opinion about one that we've had a lot of conversation about, and I've seen some line movement here also in favor, swinging towards the Hurricanes and the University of Miami, and what look to be, I mean, as much as this is being disparaged, the Pop Tarts Bowl, not just because of the goofy name. I mean, it's almost like the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl. It was the last place that you wanted to be. And is the Emerald Bowl contested out in your part of the country there? Is that a Seattle game, the Emerald Bowl? Because the Canes, that was always the very infamous, thing that people would say when they were disappointed with the season. It's like, yeah, maybe we'll play in another Emerald Bowl. But the name notwithstanding, and the fact that are you a Pop Tarts fan? Because I mean, it seems to me like it's not a very healthy way to start your day.
Correct. Used to be. I grew up on those as a kid, but no
Yeah,
more. No more. It's like having a bad donut. No
yeah.
thank you.
A resolution, probably that you're making right now would be to maybe get a little healthier, or whatever. Although you seem to be in tremendous shape, and obviously fueled by the infusion of cash you get from making all of these wages over the years. But uh, yeah, that would be the first thing you would write off, wouldn't it? It'd be like Pop Tarts. I'm not eating any more Pop Tarts in 2025. But Iowa State and Miami, an interesting matchup. Is there something to read into when you see? I think that opened up at 1.5 in favor of Miami, and I thought, well, Iowa State is probably going to give these guys a bit of a game, but and then Cam Ward keeps implying that he's playing. And that seems very odd to me because you would have to think if you were a first round pick, certain maybe top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, the last place you would want to be is anywhere near the Pop Tarts Bowl.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know if he's doing the whole Deion Sanders thing where he's going into the game with a crazy insurance policy, but no, that just like I agree. That game doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not a very sexy matchup either. Like I said, I would have loved to have seen, Miami take on Alabama or Miami even take on Colorado. I think that would have been a lot of fun. But Miami taking on an Iowa State team who just didn't, end the season very well. I would be surprised that he played, but again, to your point, the line reflects that he does. Two pretty good coaches in this football game. Crystal Ball, I know he takes a lot of heat, but they are 10-2 and 13th ranked, and they had a pretty good season. I think the line is probably about where it should be. Totals at 56.5 now. I think it's gonna be a great game to watch. Iowa State is a good football team. They're big up front. I think this is a close one. I think Miami probably wins this game 28-27, but this is going to be a close football game. But like you said, that line could change in an instant because if Cam Ward, we're coming up now on what, 48 hours till kickoff. I would not shock me one single bit if he says, never mind. Because we're, like you said, we're seeing that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing we were talking about how unregulated this whole NIL thing is in college sports, basketball and football today, and even in other sports, I guess it was seeing this infiltrate its way into the system. But yeah, I mean, you would think that some of these contracts or whatever they sign was no longer. Remember, they used to worry about getting faxed the letter of intent, and that was a big thing. And now it's like they're signing contracts with Scott Boris representing them or whatever. But you would think that would be contingent if you're getting the $3 million or whatever on playing in the bowl game, that they might make that a contingency. And yet, even with that, if you're risking, would you risk 3 million or taking 3 million and risk your NFL career? Um, that's a whole nother story. So yeah, they're very, very difficult to judge, but the indications all are, he keeps saying, "Oh yeah, I'm playing." So maybe he'll be playing catch with the mascot on the
Yeah,
sidelines.
exactly.
That would certainly change. I mean, imagine you have a substantial wager on Miami, thinking this cat's playing, and then you see him showing up in some kind of hurricane garb that is not conducive to playing football in. All right, and you mentioned Colorado as a possible hurricane opponent. Would have liked to have seen that. What do you think about them against BYU?
That's going to be a great football game. I'm really that's one that I've got circled. Can't wait to watch. The line is a little sketchy to me. You've got -4 for Colorado. I thought they actually should have been favored by more, especially Deion Sanders, unless he's I guess the $1 million question is Deion Sanders putting on a show yet again, right? He's
Yeah.
saying they're all in, everybody's playing. We've got insurance policies. Travis Hunter's going to put on a show. Shadir's going to put on a show. You got all these seniors that want to win this game. They're acting as if they're playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. So my $1 million question would be, is it a situation where maybe they play a half a football game, or maybe they go out for a quarter, put on a show for a quarter, and then he says, you know what, maybe it's not worth it. I don't know. I don't know. Deion Sanders, maybe he does play 4 quarters, and if so, I would think Colorado wins that football game. But that's one of those ones where you're like, man. Again, to your point with Cam Ward, I mean, what are you really doing here? How important is it to beat BYU in the final game of the season? So that's a wait and see for me. But the line's reflecting that they're going to go out and play hard in this game. So we'll see. Alamo Bowl's a good bowl game. Both teams had great seasons. Colorado -4, that would probably be my pick. But again, that scares me to see what Deion Sanders could say. All it takes, Shadir takes a big hit in the first quarter and he says, that's enough. I've seen enough of that.
I know this is as useless as the facade of having a fan boycott, where everybody says, "Oh, I'll never go to another game again," and you can't wait to cop some tickets. But eventually, there's going to have to be some class action suit filed by degenerates who have no chance to win, because they're looking at you saying, "Well, why were you betting on something that Deion Sanders said?" But somebody eventually is going to at least be there'll be an attempt to hold somebody accountable for making up a fugazi story like all of his starters are going to be there, and then they go out there for one snap. And if I'm anywhere near the Hurricane program, I'm holding up a picture of a guy named Melvin Bratton for Cam Ward, who, of course, was destined to be a first-round NFL pick. Got injured in the Orange Bowl game that year, playing for what was a powerhouse Hurricanes team, and was never the same. I ended up dropping in the third round, lost a lot of money, and the money wasn't as big at the time, and he never was the same player. He looked like he was going to be a dominant pro. So that was before this whole opt-out thing came along, where you had players just say, "Hey, if it's not for the national championship," like they say on Shark Tank, Troy West, "For those reasons, I'm out." All right.
Yep.
You have been. I'm watching this stuff, and I know you document all of this. I mean, this isn't something you're pulling numbers out of the sky. So you guys have been rolling out of people. And what kind of did Santa just touch you with a magic wand? I mean, you're giving this stuff away now. What's the deal on it?
Yeah, we're doing a deal right now, Depot. 7 days free. 7 days free. There's no catch to that. Come try out the service. 7 days free. We're not going to upsell you. There's no gimmicks. You're going to get all the plays that all the paying people get. The goal is to obviously give you 7 days free, and you say, "Hell yeah, I'm in," and you give the service a shot. The website is troywins.com. That 7 days free is going to pop right up for you. The Instagram is It's Troy West. All of our stuff is documented on Instagram. You can see, up to date records, reviews on how we're doing, breakdowns on why we have particular games. So that's all over the Instagram. It's Troy West, and then the website is troywins.com.
All right, excellent job as always. Appreciate you getting up early on the Northwest territory that you reside in. Eagles -7 over Dallas, whether Jalen Hurts plays or not. You have Navy over Oklahoma, right? Navy over
Yep.
Oklahoma. You like Georgia Tech over Vanderbilt?
Yep.
Georgia Tech in that game was the pick.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Very good. And Georgia Tech was good this year. I mean, they knocked the Hurricanes out of the
Yeah, they did.
CFP, and they stunned everybody. Although we didn't know how bad Florida State was going to be with the ukulele kid, but when they won that game in Ireland to open a season, but they were a good team and tough to defend. And Texas A&M over USC. That's Troy West for your holiday and hopefully New Year's Eve celebration specials here on the show. Troy, always a pleasure. Thanks again for doing this, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Steve. Well, have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks very much. Troy West.